They called her Saint Miriam, the perfect daughter of Pastor Ezekiel, the man whose healing crusades drew crowds like rivers. People left his services clutching medical reports, swearing they were healed. Mothers named their babies after him. Even politicians knelt for his prayers. And Miriam? She was his jewel, the church's crown, the young woman whose soft voice in worship could still a restless crowd. She sang like she had seen heaven itself. Her laughter was gentle, her eyes steady, and her steps quiet enough for people to whisper, "Surely the Spirit of God rests on her." She was always modestly dressed, her skirts brushing the floor, her hair covered in church-approved scarves. She led the choir without raising her voice. She never missed Bible study. When her father preached, she sat in the front pew with her hands folded neatly in her lap, eyes fixed on him as if every word were a treasure. To the congregation, she was proof of her father's anointing, living evidence that holiness could be passed down like an inheritance. Women brought their daughters to meet her, hoping something would rub off on her. Men, both young and old, spoke of her with reverence. Her father often called her his covering, the one who kept him grounded. There were days Miriam felt like she wasn't a person, but a statue. Admired, respected, untouched. People expected her to be flawless. They mistook her silence for purity, her obedience for joy. They never asked what she wanted, what she thought, or if she was happy. Behind the smile and the carefully chosen words, she was tired. Tired of being watched. Tired of being praised for a life she didn't choose. Tired of carrying the weight of her father's spotless image. And then came the night she learned the truth. It was after a Friday night prayer vigil. Miriam had left her bag in the church office. The building was almost empty, the corridors dim. As she approached her father's office, she heard voices. She slowed her steps. "The woman with the crutches, she didn't fall at the right time," a man was saying. She recognized the voice, Brother Samuel, the outreach coordinator. Pastor Ezekiel's tone was sharp. "Then train her again. She's supposed to fall when I touch her forehead, not before. It rains the moment." Samuel sighed. "It's getting harder, Pastor. Finding people willing to pretend they are healed for the cameras. Not everyone wants to play along anymore."
She didn't move. She didn't breathe. Behind that door, her father, the man the world called a prophet, spoke words that could burn his kingdom to the ground. And Miriam knew if she stayed another second, her life would never be the same.
There was a pause. Then her father's voice, lower now. "You are paid to make it happen, Samuel. The ministry runs on results, not prayers. Crowds don't give if they don't see miracles. No miracles, no money. No money." His voice hardened. "No you." Miriam's chest tightened. She pressed herself against the wall, afraid to breathe. Samuel's voice grew bitter. "Careful, Pastor. You forget Lagos. You needed me then. I kept my mouth shut about the woman who really died before you prayed over her. You called it a resurrection. I called it a cover-up." Ezekiel's chest scraped loudly against the floor. "You swore you'd never bring that up again." Samuel gave a humorless laugh. "I'm here with the deals for the week. 3 healings on Sunday, 2 midweek, and 1 special for the Saturday crusade. But it's going to cost more this time." The air was thick with quiet threats. Miriam's hands were trembling now. The man the world adored was talking about miracles like stage plays. And Brother Samuel, the loyal servant, was using her father's own secrets as a weapon. She took 1 step back and the floorboard creaked. The voices stopped. "Miriam?" Her father's voice was closer now. She didn't answer. She turned and walked quickly down the hall, her heart pounding so loud she could barely hear his footsteps behind the door. That night, she didn't sleep because she knew she was holding something no one else knew, a truth too dangerous to tell, but too heavy to carry. And slowly, quietly, the girl the church called Saint Miriam began to disappear. That was the night Saint Miriam died and Miss Mercy was born. She left home quietly, no arguments, no public drama. The church believed she was moving to the city to study medicine. Pastor Ezekiel even prayed for her from the pulpit, thanking God for his obedient daughter. But the truth was different. Her new apartment was in one of the city's most expensive neighborhoods, furnished, secure, and paid for with her father's ministry funds. It was the kind of place where the front desk staff bowed when you walked in, and the carpet was so soft it swallowed your footsteps. By day, she kept up appearances. She carried medical textbooks, attended occasional lectures, and posted the occasional student life picture online for the church members who followed her. But at night, she became someone entirely, Miss Mercy.
She dressed in silk and satin, in colors she would never have dared to wear as Miriam. Red wigs, high black heels, long gloves, and always the mask. The mask wasn't because she was ashamed. It was because she wanted control. No one saw her full face. No one used her real name. And yes, she sold intimacy. But she wasn't standing on street corners or answering random calls. She was exclusive. You didn't find Miss Mercy. Miss Mercy found you if you were wealthy enough, powerful enough, and discreet enough. Her clients were not ordinary men. They were politicians who signed laws by day and broke them by night. CEOs whose businesses were household names. Even pastors, men who condemned sin in public but paid for her company in private. They paid her not just for her body, but for her presence, for her ability to make them feel seen, understood, and in some twisted way, safe. They told her their secrets, their weaknesses, their fears, and she listened. She remembered everything. Money mattered, yes, but it wasn't what drove her. What she truly wanted was power. The power to stand in front of any man, no matter how feared or respected, and know she could ruin him with one sentence. By day, she was still Saint Miriam to the world, the pastor's daughter, the quiet medical student. By night, behind locked hotel doors and under dim chandeliers, Miss Mercy ruled a world where she was untouchable. And the longer she lived this double life, the more she began to realize. She didn't just want freedom from her father's control. She wanted the kind of control no one could ever take away from her.
One rainy Thursday night, Miss Mercy sat in the corner of a private suite at the Marlowe Grand Hotel. The chandelier above spilled soft gold light, glinting off her wine glass. Her red wig framed her face like fire, and the black satin mask hid the delicate features he might have recognized. The door opened without a knock. Pastor Daniel Adewale stepped in, shaking the rain from his coat. The River of Fire Assembly was his empire, a megachurch of 30,000 followers. He had preached side by side with Pastor Ezekiel countless times. He had even been to their home, eating at the same table as Miriam. But tonight, he saw no trace of her. He only saw Miss Mercy. "You are even more beautiful in person," he said, his voice low, almost reverent. Mercy smiled faintly beneath the mask, saying nothing as he approached. His cologne mixed with the faint scent of wine in the air. He reached for her hand, brushing his lips against it. She let him. When she rose to meet him, he hesitated for only a second before leaning in. The first kiss was tentative, testing. The second was deeper, his hands sliding to her waist, as if trying to pull her closer, to erase the distance between them. Mercy knew exactly how to respond,
A slow, deliberate touch along the back of his neck, the kind that sent a shiver through him. She leaned just close enough for her breath to warm his ear before pulling away slightly, letting him chase her lips again. He was burning now, his body alive under her deliberate, unhurried movements. She didn't rush, she didn't need to. Every caress was calculated, a spark placed exactly where it would ignite him the most. Somewhere between their kisses, his guard fell away. Words spilled out, stories of political favors, of envelopes passed under tables, of preachers who built empires on lies. He spoke of his own sins in the same tone another man might use to talk about the weather. Mercy listened, her face unreadable behind the mask. Her phone, hidden in her clutch on the nearby table, was recording every word, every slip of his tongue, every name he should never have spoken. When he finally leaned back, breathless, she traced her gloved finger along his jawline. "You have a lot of secrets, Pastor," she murmured. He smiled lazily, "And tonight they're all safe with you." But as she kissed him again, Mercy knew the truth. Nothing that passed through her hands ever stayed safe. It was close to midnight when Miss Mercy's phone buzzed with an unknown number. The voice was deep, steady, and deliberate. "Governor Tayo Ajibade, Pastor Daniel says you're unforgettable." 2 hours later, she was stepping out of a black town car at the governor's private villa, a glass and marble fortress hidden behind tall walls. No one stopped her. The guards already knew who she was there for. The governor waited in a softly lit lounge, brandy in hand. His eyes moved over her. The red wig, the satin mask, the fitted black dress, and the long gloves. "Now I see why Daniel spoke of you," he said, his voice thick with anticipation. Mercy moved towards him slowly, her heels clicking like a metronome, counting down the moments until she reached him. She didn't speak. She simply slid the glass from his hand, brushed her fingers across his skin, and set it aside. The governor didn't know there was a hidden camera embedded in the corner of the room, already rolling. He didn't know the small clutch on the table contained a second device, recording their voices with crystal clarity. Her hands began their work, slow, deliberate, mapping his body like she was learning him by touch alone. From his shoulder down to his chest, along the line of his ribs, and back up to the curve of his neck. Every movement was calculated, designed to pull him deeper into her control. He tried to speak, but her nearness stole the rhythm from his words. She leaned in, lips brushing the edge of his jaw before retreating just enough to make him follow her lips again. He was burning now, his body alive under her deliberate, unhurried movements. She didn't rush. She didn't need to. Every caress was calculated, a spark placed exactly where it would ignite him the most. When she finally kissed him, it wasn't affection, it was closure, the final move in a game she had already won.
On the 10th of July, Mercy woke up in a penthouse suite overlooking the city. The skyline glittered like the life she had built, untouchable, expensive, and entirely hers. She poured herself a glass of champagne, leaned against the balcony railing, and opened her tablet. For weeks, she had been working quietly under a fake account, an anonymous page that posted secrets too dangerous to share openly. Last night, she had uploaded 2 files. The first was footage of Pastor Daniel Adewale, her father's close friend and one of her most regular clients, speaking freely about bribes, stolen church funds, and his private life with her. The second was even darker, a conversation between three high-ranking politicians bragging about a ritual involving the murder of a university student to secure power. She had scheduled the uploads to go live at midnight. Now, the headlines were everywhere. Prominent mega-church pastor linked to financial scandal and sexual misconduct. Politicians implicated in shocking ritual murder of students. Pastor Daniel's photo was on every channel. His voice, calm and arrogant in the recordings, filled living rooms across the country. The politicians' faces were blurred on TV, but their identities were an open secret. Mercy took a slow sip of champagne, her mask of calm unshaken. She had done this before. This was how Miss Mercy worked: uncover, expose, control. But by noon, the fallout was already bigger than she expected. Pastor Daniel's church was in chaos. Riots broke out outside government offices. The murdered student's family was swarmed by reporters. People who had nothing to do with the crimes were being dragged into the storm. And then another headline appeared. Former Governor Tayo Ajibade dies by suicide amidst corruption probe. The governor's name hit her like a jolt. She knew exactly which probe they meant. The one sparked by the recording she had made with him months earlier. The same one she'd uploaded anonymously weeks before the others. She turned on the TV. The governor's wife stood before cameras, pale, holding the hands of two young sons who kept asking, "Where is Daddy?" It wasn't guilt over the men she had exposed. They had earned every second of the fire that was now consuming them. It was the collateral damage that gnawed at her. Wives, children, workers who lost their jobs when companies tied to corrupt officials collapsed. Families now living in fear because she had lit a match without thinking about the wind. That night, she sat on the balcony for hours, staring at the skyline. For the first time, she asked herself if she had crossed from justice into destruction. If Miss Mercy had become the very thing Miriam once swore she would never be. The decision came quietly. 2 weeks later, a luxury black car pulled into the dusty driveway of her family home. The Sunday service had just ended, and church members were still gathered outside, chatting in the afternoon sun. When the car door opened, a ripple went through the crowd. There she was, Miss Mercy. No mask, no saintly church attire. A crimson silk dress hugged her figure. Black heels tapped against the ground, and the red wig glinted in the light. The murmurs started immediately. "That's Miriam! It can't be! Look at her!"
Her father, Pastor Ezekiel, froze in mid-conversation. Her mother's jaw slackened. No one moved. No one spoke to her as she walked past, her eyes forward, her expression unreadable. Inside the house, the questions came like bullets. Where have you been? What is this you're wearing? What have you done? Mercy said nothing. Not that day, not the next. It wasn't until a week later, on a hot sunny afternoon, that she called her entire family into the living room. She stood before them, her father, her mother, her older brother, and finally spoke. She told them everything, every hotel room, every mask, every name. Her father's face drained of color when she named his friends. Her brother couldn't look her in the eye. And her mother simply folded her arms, silent, until Mercy turned to her. "And you, mother," Mercy said evenly, "don't look so shocked. I know about Tunde, the usher, the night you stayed late at church wearing prayer meetings." The room was silent. No one denied anything. When she was finished, Mercy didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't offer it either. She simply said, "I came back to end it, all of it." And that was the day Miss Mercy
began to disappear, and Miriam, for the first time in years, started to rise again. The Sunday after the confrontation, the church was packed, not just with regular members, but with curious strangers, journalists, and even rival pastors who wanted to see how Pastor Ezekiel would handle the whispers now roaring through the city. He stood behind the pulpit, but the fire in his voice was gone. For a long time, he said nothing. The murmurs filled the room like a restless tide. Then slowly, he gripped the microphone. "I have sinned," he said, the words tasting foreign in his mouth. "I have failed as a shepherd, as a husband, as a father." The congregation went silent. He didn't mention specifics, not Pastor Daniel, not the politicians, not the secret deals, but everyone knew. His voice shook as he asked for forgiveness, his eyes darting to the front pew, where Miriam was dressed in a simple white blouse and long skirt, her hair natural, her face bare. She didn't look away. When service ended, people crowded her. Some hugged her, some stared, some whispered. But Miriam didn't shrink from it. For the first time in years, she wasn't wearing a mask, not the satin one from her nights as Miss Mercy, and not the invisible one she had worn for the church as Saint Miriam. She walked out of that building with the sun on her face, the heat on her skin, and a strange lightness in her chest. The life she had built as Mercy had been about power, about control, but this was different. She had nothing to hide, nothing to prove. And in that moment, she realized she wasn't returning to Saint Miriam. That girl was gone. She was becoming someone new, someone who had walked through fire and didn't smell of smoke. Miriam had found herself again, and this time, she belonged to no one but her.